Just a little disclaimer before we get into today's NBA talk. You may hear some little technical difficulties and some lag from this episode due to us being over Zoom. So obviously we can't always control the connection and things of that nature. So apologies for that. And I hope you all enjoyed today's Four Quarter Talk episode. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Four Quarter Talk podcast with myself, Jack Brazil, and my co-host, as always, Josh Brazil. Say what's up, Josh?
Yo, what's that? Still here.
Let's get straight into the NBA news and the NBA topics. It's been a bit quiet as of recent due to March Madness kind of sealing all the headlines. But seeing as we're not a college basketball podcast, we'll get right into the NBA topics. And Josh, we've got to talk about the buyout market. It's caused quite a lot of controversy over the past few weeks, with the top two teams in the NBA adding a lot of quality through it for very little price. If you're not sure what the buyout market is, it's where a team and a player will come to an agreement on a fee, which is usually quite close to their salary, but not quite all of it. That means that the contract is broken off the player if they're not happy in that scenario. As we saw with Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge and Andre Drummond, they were in three scenarios that didn't really fit their kind of timeline. These are three older players who want to be winning now. So they agreed to buyouts with their teams. And we saw Blake Griffin leave the Detroit Pistons and sign with the Brooklyn Nets. And the benefit of this for a team like the Nets and the Lakers is that they usually don't have a lot of cap space because of the superstars they have in their team. So they can get very good quality NBA players for minimum contracts, which is ideal because these teams are in win now mode and some of the favorites for the title, and these signings will take them to the next. They're hoping it will take them to the next step in the promised land of a championship. So I'll just break it down. The Brooklyn Nets acquired Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge. A lot of memes being thrown up about that one and how much do the Nets need to beat LeBron. I think a lot of people kind of overreacting, thinking that these two players are still in their prime when they're most definitely not.
It's crazy. I mean, we're seeing teams. I see this every year as a talking point. A bunch of small market teams who make a point to tell the league that this is unfair because obviously a lot of these players do end up going to those larger markets.
Yeah,
I do understand that as we've seen now with them joining the Nets and the Lakers. But yeah. I don't think it's that simple because I think if you run your franchise well and put your team in a position to win, you're gonna get these players. Georgie Jeng was a player that wasn't a big name, but he was also sought after during the buyout market, and I think he went to the Spurs, who weren't exactly a buyout market destination, and obviously with LeBron's years with the Cleveland Cavaliers, they often they often got players survive this method. So I don't think it's more of a winning thing than a large market thing. And if your team's competent, you're gonna get these players. So I don't see that. But the whole NBA Twitter was showing
true colors.
Showing a lot of people are casuals. A lot of casuals.
Yeah.
Not only with the overreaction of acquiring a kind of over the hill, Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge, or overrating and underrating Andre Drummond, but also the comparisons to the Chris Paul trade, which, if you don't know about this, the Lakers attempted to acquire Chris Paul via trade whilst they still had Kobe Bryant, from the New Orleans Hornets, and at the time, the NBA actually owned the Hornets. They directly owned the team because they were in a transitional period and they didn't have an owner at the time. And so this trade was vetoed, which meant that it couldn't go through for whatever reason, whether they thought it would, be an unfair for that team in general, or maybe they, a lot of people say conspiracies about them not wanting the Lakers to be overpowered. But that was a situation where the league could step in. But now, since then, you get these fans that every time the deal goes through, whether it be trade or even free agency, they're like, "Oh, but you didn't let Chris Paul go to the Lakers, but you let KD sign with it. Like that's free agency." Or
that's going to be held over their heads for the rest of the time. I think it's such a big what if. It's still confusing.
It's not the same thing.
that whole thing as well. I'm not sure why they did it when.
Yeah, it's a very unique
Yeah,
circumstance.
yeah.
That just wouldn't happen
But
again.
but
So stop asking Adam Silver to veto every time a player goes to a team you don't like.
exactly, because he's not going to do it. It's just not realistic in today's NBA, is it? I mean, we are in the era of the super team. You just got to get used to it, I think, especially if you're a small market team. I do really agree with the point you said about players are going to go where they've got the best chance to win. I mean, why would LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin, who are in like the twilight years of their career, want to go to a rebuilding project when they have the choice of a potential championship? Like those are two players who haven't won a championship as of yet. So this is kind of I guess they see this as their last run at a championship. So you can only understand why they're going to the best teams in the league. But from a different standpoint, from a team perspective, for the Nets and the Lakers, let's break it down. How do you rate these moves in improving those two teams' chances at a title? Because if we're looking just at each conference wise, those two teams would probably be the teams you would say are the favourites to make it out of their respective conferences. So who do you think improved their chance of winning a title the most, the Lakers or the Nets?
I would have to say, I'd say the Nets, just because two is better than one in that sense. And I think in terms of adding to their depth, these moves make a lot of sense. I don't think it makes them some. I mean, I think the title of this would be Are the Nets Overpowered. I don't think this makes them overpowered. I think these players are coming over knowing what their roles will be, and you shouldn't expect superstar production from either of them at this stage of their career. But they don't have to do that, and that's why a player like Blake Griffin, who's had injury concerns, and a player like LaMarcus Aldridge, who's in the later stages of his career, would go there, because not a lot of pressure is on them. All a Blake Griffin has to do is provide a little bit of playmaking, and all LaMarcus Aldridge has to do, both of them really, is on the odd play attract a double.
Yeah.
And that gives Kyrie 1-on-1 or whoever it may be. I think what is underrated about both of these moves, though, is that both teams are dealing with significant injury concerns, and more so with the Lakers, who are slipping.
Yeah.
This is going to be important for them, because they need to. I mean, obviously now
Stop
Andre
the
Drummond
bleeding a
had.
little bit.
Yeah. Andre Drummond had his injury in the first day.
Yeah.
But they need someone to step up for them to keep them above water, because the Lakers are looking like they're going to be, the We Believe Lakers, with one of those bottom seeds. I don't think they'll slip to the play-in, but with one of those bottom seeds. So both of these deals are going to be weird, because we won't see what they look like with the finished product. I think Kevin Durant is returning this week, so we might start to see that. But with the Lakers, it's going to be a weird one. But I would say the two acquisitions made by the Nets complement their team more than Andre Drummond does the Lakers.
It's concerning for the Lakers how I heard their coach talking about how Anthony Davis is still quite a while away from returning. He's already been out for 7 weeks, and obviously that LeBron injury is quite fresh, so that 3 to 5 week timeline is still quite far away. So they do have to stop the bleeding a bit. Obviously, very unfortunate with that Andre Drummond injury, but I'm just questioning, like as you said with the Nets, they've got those two pieces who could contribute to wins. I'm not sure how much Andre Drummond is contributing to wins.
I don't like the Lakers situation. If I'm a Lakers fan, I don't like it at all.
I'll be a little bit panicked. I'll be a little bit panicked. For sure.
Because there's one thing of Kyle Kuzma having these good performances and getting his confidence up, but what you liked from Kyle Kuzma to start this season was that he was starting to really embrace this role.
Yeah.
And the more you have him or a Dennis Schroeder, start to get used to handling the ball very often, because LeBron is his own system, so the mesh is going to be weird when they come back. And Andre Drummond, he's not used to winning basketball at all.
Exactly.
So you worry how in an ideal world he can help. Obviously, there's talk about his inefficiency. and how his stats can be inflated, but they don't need what they need from him is to kind of replicate that, JaVale McGee or um, Dwight Howard production,
Yeah,
which just by being a bigger body, he'll help them immensely because, when they do get to the playoffs, they need someone that's not going to get, abused like Montrezl Harrell.
yeah,
So they'll need to, switch based on the matchup. And if he can just be a big body inside, that would do bits for them. But
yeah. It definitely takes a lot of defensive pressure off of Anthony Davis' shoulders, I think, and
yeah, who doesn't like playing
LeBron as
center?
well. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So there's no more question marks about Anthony Davis having to play center, which should free him up even more when he comes back. Because at times it looked like he didn't know if he was playing center or not when he was with the Lakers this season. But this move should now free that up out of his mind and think, okay, Drummond's going to come in and play those center minutes. Just you play your game at the power forward, which is your preferred position and the position you've played your whole career. From a Nets standpoint, I'm not sure if they've addressed with this move. I don't think they've addressed any interior defense concerns. Both.
yeah. I was going to get to that actually.
Both of these players not known for their interior defense at all. Never have been, probably never will be. But does it improve it? Just having, because they had quite a lack of centers there with Nicholas Claxton and DeAndre Jordan kind of being their only two options. Does just even having different options at that spot maybe improve the defense?
Yeah, what I was worried about with these signings was that I think they found, with these injuries, I think they found a gem in Nick Claxton.
Yeah.
I think he can give them very productive minutes. He's showing not only interior defense but a diversity in the way he can step up. He can be Mark Aldridge to be as big as how he came to that conclusion. But he can move. He's quick. He can definitely add that, I think. So I hope with these trades, because I think just last night against you, they decided to start Aldridge and Blake, which I don't think is a good idea. I think they should give Claxton.
Yeah, a lot of Nets fans and NBA fans were saying like they saw one glimpse of it and said that's not the move. And you can see it wasn't the move either. Yeah. Like we exploited that a lot. We knew that the paint was going to be their weak area that night, so we were driving a lot, getting a lot of fouls. So
you got this 8 minutes.
Yeah,
because you thought when that report came out about them transitioning away from DeAndre Jordan, you thought that would open up playing time for Claxton, who not only because he's young as well, so you need to give him the confidence, and he's given the minutes there. You'd hope that a seemingly a smart coaching staff would not just go for the big names or whatever, and would just go all in with Claxton, because I think he can be that player that the Nets have needed to make them respectable as a defensive team, just respectable enough to for the rest of their offense to carry them. So they just need him there. I think they need to be looking at Aldridge and Blake as kind of a Livingston, Andre Iguodala type role, rather than expecting them to be, this big five or whatever. Because they're just names alone at this point in their career.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of the hype to do with this deal was just based on their names, wasn't it? Aldridge and Blake Griffin. I saw stuff like, they've got like 41 All-Star appearances between them. And that's all well and good, but those for Aldridge and Blake Griffin are quite a long time in the past. Probably won't be getting any in their future. So in terms of that,
couple knee surgeries ago.
Yeah, a couple knee surgeries ago. Blake Griffin could jump a lot higher when he was getting those All-Star nods. But
I remember it was the joke of Blake dunking on his first game and all of that, but it's not the same.
It's not the same. No, they're more like rim grazers now. He's not going to be catching any bodies anytime soon, I don't think. But LaMarcus Aldridge did have a very impressive debut. Wasn't as impressive against.
But he's had a good 2 games now. Averaging 11.
That's all they need. All they need is someone who could stretch the floor a bit from him. Yeah, that's all they really need. Create more space for their superstars.
Yeah, they just need them to be a threat. Just to give them a chance, just to create space for the superstars in the team. Because with Kyrie, KD, and Harden on the floor, you don't need any more offense really. You just need the spacing to be there. You just need smart players who, as they might be over the hill, but Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge know how to play. They know how to play make. So that helps in their favor. But yeah, having Claxton a lot, featuring him a lot more, will definitely be more important for them in playoff time with those matchups.
Yeah, these are obviously very positive signings, and I do think they help the Nets chance to win a title, but not as much. Like a lot of people are acting and as if they're they're guaranteed to go on and win a title because of these
No.
signings, and it's definitely not that at all. The Eastern Conference is still going to be very hard with the Bucks, keep on improving. The Sixers are getting Embiid back, so it's not going to be a cakewalk by any means. But let's get on to the Bucks, who has some very positive news this week regarding Jrue Holiday, who they acquired at the start of the season. He signed a 4-year contract extension with the team. It's quite a lot of money. I think it's $160 million. If I'm
It's 135, but incentives can take it up to 160. Yeah.
so a lot of money for a player who's 31 years of age. But he's clearly one of the most important players on this team. 27 and 11, the Bucks are with him in the lineup compared to 5 and 6 with him out of the lineup. And a lot of questions are always asked to the Bucks. What are they going to do when Giannis hits the wall and meets the wall? That a lot of teams like to deploy against him in the playoffs. And they clearly think Jrue Holiday can be an answer to that. They've got now their big three locked down to big contracts. So this is it for them. Not a lot of cap space is going to be remaining. So the only way they're improving this team is from the buyout market and trades, I guess. Josh, how would you grade this contract extension? Obviously, Jrue Holiday is known as one of the most underrated players in the league, and it's clear that he's a big upgrade on Eric Bledsoe, and it's clear he's contributing to wins. And I personally think this is a really good signing, really smart move.
I absolutely believe it's a great signing, and
Yeah,
it's a signing they had to make. Firstly, before he'd even played a second of Bucks basketball, committing to, when you make this trade, committing four future first round picks, um, you need him to resign. You need him to be a part of your future. And the first half, or probably the first 99% of what you wanted out of it, was getting Giannis to resign, giving him the confidence that you are making the moves to win.
yeah,
And that last part is making sure that he's not a rental, and they've achieved that. He's having a career season for them, but more importantly than that is just signing him getting him in the first place is what gave Giannis the confidence to, you know, commit long term to the Bucks franchise, and then this is just following through and completing it to make sure that he's part of their future. Because you see, if you're the Bucks front office, you've seen enough already. He's having a
yeah,
career season efficiency wise from the field and from three. He's continuing to show that all NBA level defense, and he's even showing, in important moments that he can take over. He can be that closing player that they've needed. He's a huge upgrade. Eric Bledsoe is one of the worst, playoff performers in the league, and then you go to a player that, routinely steps up in the playoffs and can be one of those most important players. Because, we saw a couple of years ago
they
when
swept
as
the
the sixth
Blazers.
seed they were able to sweep the Blazers,
Yeah,
and he completely outplayed Damian Lillard. So he's showing routinely that he can be that type of player. He's definitely worth the money because he is that valuable to that franchise. Because you're not getting free agents there, so you might as well pay these valuable players that the Bucks. When you have a player at Giannis's caliber, you're not gonna need loads of all stars or anything like that. You just need players that complement him, and he does that. He can allow Giannis to be more of an off-ball player, which will kind of negate the ability to
wall him
play
up.
that that wall,
Yeah,
that walls type defense,
yeah,
and that would be a very big deal come playoff time.
yeah. And another point, I'm not sure if you mentioned it there, but the fact that they've got another closer on this team is of great importance. I think maybe the most important thing, because Chris Middleton has the potential to be that, but he hasn't shown that he can be that consistently. And it's never going to be Giannis with the skill set he possesses. So to have Jrue Holiday and to have a less predictable offense in clutch time situations is going to help Budenholzer. But now I do think this signing puts a lot of pressure on Budenholzer's shoulders. If the Bucks crash out now in similar fashion to the way they did last year,
will be good.
He'll be gone because there's no other question marks remaining on this team. I don't think. They've got a great squad around an MVP caliber player, a great offense, a great defense. I think they're going to be a 50-win team for the next 4 or 5 years while those guys are under contract. The question will just be the playoffs, and obviously those questions will fall on the shoulders of Mike Budenholzer. So his job is in jeopardy, I think, if they don't do well this year.
Where he does deserve credit though is as a player coach, because he's obviously given these players the confidence in him to commit their futures to him.
Yeah, so, but are they signing that maybe thinking what we're thinking, that he won't be around forever?
Possibly.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is he gave them the confidence to
I can't believe you're praising Mike Budenholzer.
That is a point. That is a point, and that's separate. There's player coaches that do that, and that can be valuable in itself. But yeah, the clock is ticking for him, because not only this isn't like other years where we're like, okay, come on, it's predictable, but then what are their options? We can say don't make Giannis handle the ball all you want, but if he's their best option, he's their best option. But when you get presented with a player, when you upgrade from Eric Bledsoe to Jrue Holiday, you have the clear blueprint there. So if you don't utilize that, then obviously, it's over.
I think that's about the nicest thing you've ever said about Mike Budenholzer. Are you feeling like what's...
The Easter spirit, man? It's got my spirit. It's got my spirits up, man.
Wow. But a lot of pressure on Mike Budenholzer's shoulders now for sure. But let's move away from the Bucks and let's talk about another team in the Eastern Conference, and a team that we kind of expected at the start of the season to be up there with the Bucks and the Sixers and the Nets. That's the Celtics. Haven't lived up to their expectations at all this year. Currently sitting at 25-25 on the season, in the 8th seed. So they would be in the play-in tournament if the season stopped today. Won their last 2 and blew out the Charlotte Hornets by 30 last night, although it was, a very short-handed Hornets who I've just had the unfortunate news that Gordon Hayward looks like he's going to be out for about a month. And obviously, add that to LaMelo Ball being out, it wasn't the Charlotte Hornets we all kind of know and love of this season. But the question is, can they get some consistency going after these 2 wins, Josh? And where do you think the ceiling is now for this team? Like, where do you think they should look to get up to in the Eastern Conference standings?
Yeah, coming off a season where they made the conference finals, albeit a strange, bubble season.
Yeah.
I do think, a lot of people had confidence in them. They have 2 established superstar level players, but I do think we have to be a lot more realistic now. They are quite average. I don't think their season is as high as we thought it'd be. We thought maybe, Kemba was just having a down moment, but I think a mixture of, decision making in the front office, coaching, maybe overrating players has kind of led to this. So I'll start with the, front office. Obviously with Danny Ainge, we criticize him for not being, aggressive enough with trades and things like that. But I think following the last disappointing the season that they had, back in 2019, I think they had a moment there where they could have pivoted away from an obvious formula. They kind of chose to just kind of scapegoat Kyrie and just pin it as, a Kyrie issue, an issue of selfishness. Yeah. But what it really was too many ball handlers, too many shot creators. It was a fit issue. And they didn't really address that. They just decided to try go for the next best thing after Kyrie, which they saw as Kemba on the market there. And that was kind of a moment where you can kind of pivot away and decide to just give the reins to their two young superstars and fill out the roster. And they've kind of paid for that this year because they have no depth. They let Hayward go for nothing. All they got from letting Gordon Hayward go was a trade exception, which they didn't really use.
Yep.
And now they find themselves with a team that is very much depleted. They have got no depth. Kemba has completely fallen off from that All-Star season that he had right before they acquired him.
Yeah.
And I think they've kind of taken a step back. They're a lot further back in that process, in that development now. We saw them as a team on the rise, but now they look like they might have to go back to the drawing board before reaching contention.
Yeah, I think the depth is a real issue here. I mean, you know who's going to be in the starting lineup, and on paper it's a very solid starting lineup. But when you've got like Tristan Thompson, Peyton Pritchard, Grant Williams, Semi Ojeleye, you've got Evan Fournier there, who they just acquired, obviously, but that's not a competitive bench at all. So when those guys get in the game, other teams are kind of licking their lips and saying, okay, we can make a run here. I do want to quickly talk about Robert Williams, though. I think he's had a fantastic season, really showing himself as quite a dynamic big man. He's a good passer, very good defender. Not quite as dynamic on the offensive end, maybe, but I think he's vital to how they play right now. And a lot of eyebrows were raised when they traded away Daniel Tice to the Bulls. But it's clear it was to free up minutes for Robert Williams.
He had a tremendous game. He had a 20-point, 9-rebound, 8-assist game, 9 for 9 from the field, making him, along with Jokic and Wilt Chamberlain, the only centers to have those stats. So,
he looks fantastic, and I think he's going to be vital to the Celtics if they want to win. He needs to keep playing at this level, and it's clear the front office think he can. He's kind of emerged as the number 3 guy on that team, with Kemba Walker being poor and Marcus Smart getting back to his fitness. Also, Evan Fournier started obviously probably in the worst possible way, 0 for 10 debut, but then last 2 has been on fire from 3. I think he made like 9 straight threes over the 2 games, and that's exactly what the Celtics need, is some shooting off that bench, because as Matt has said in last week's episode, the Celtics do not make a lot of threes off that bench. So he will come in and provide a bit of spark. So I think the Celtics look better after the trade line than they did before it. But a lot is left to be desired with the moves they could have made. Yeah. I mean, you see Aaron Gordon has gone on to thrive in Denver. They're 4-0 since they acquired him, and he looks great for them. You just think like a team like Boston could have done with someone of his skill set.
Yeah, and then the second thing that I was going to talk about was their coaching. Brad Stevens again is kind of showing his limitations as a coach. He's a great X and O's coach. He's shown that as a college coach, coming into the NBA as a young coach, but in these seasons where it's been a bit of an issue handling egos and handling, when the pressure's actually there. It's easier when you're that underdog team, but he does need to make those adjustments now. He does need to learn to hold players accountable. He's having players like Tristan Thompson kind of play out of character, try dribble moves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just different players just not, you're having Jason Tatum say that, we're having issues with like just being ready for the game. And that is as much as, players need to be motivated in themselves, but, coaches need to find ways to motivate their players as well, because the worst thing you can have in any professional team is a locker room that gets tired of their coach's voice.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these coaches do say the same thing. So once they kind of get tired of that, it's hard to lose a locker room.
So. Yeah, for sure. And Brad Stevens is a coach that, going into the season, I look like maybe Steve Kerr, that had a glowing reputation.
Steve Kerr's another one in that conversation right now.
Yeah, but
we might talk about another episode.
This what I mean, like where you go on a bit of a losing streak and a bit of an average season, you're your reputation can completely change. You saw that with Tibbs as well in Minnesota. He's been able to bring bring his reputation back. We had our episode
Voice break of
voice
the
crack.
episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got a sneak one in. Yeah,
But yeah, Brad Stevens was praised and heralded as the next Greg Popovich,
yeah.
back in that season, and right now it's kind of lost his magic a
Does it
little bit.
does it show you though that you can only work with what you have? Do you know what I mean? Like this is quite an underwhelming roster as we've discussed. Like he's had a lot better teams than this throughout his Celtics career. Is he
He's
being
had
held back by
less
that? Do you
talent.
think?
He's had less talent as well, though. I think
Yeah,
with no one was looking at Isaiah Thomas's as those Celtics as a contender, and he made a lot out of nothing. That was the kind of teams that we thought that he'd be able to take forward. I think we did collectively overrate the Celtics going into the season just based on how they performed, and we did completely underrate the loss of Gordon Hayward, who was clear. It's clear now that a lot of his underperformance had to do obviously with injury and recovering from that, but also with the fit,
yeah,
which has continued to be an issue. So I think they're just not on that tier. They're not on that upper tier of the Eastern Conference, and that's just a sad truth that maybe we're kind of rushing to crown them as the next big. Maybe they are the future, but I don't think they're the present right now.
yeah, for sure. There's a lot of questions for the Celtics to answer. I mean, they've set this precedent and this reputation for themselves. Can they answer it? Can they live up to it? Let's see.
And maybe Danny Ainge himself doesn't believe that they are good enough right now, because a GM that thinks that they're a player away would be a lot more aggressive in the trade deadline.
Yeah, for sure. But even he's done this throughout multiple seasons though. So has he always thought that? I mean, where does he think the team's at if he's not pursuing like to make his team be better? He's a very weird GM, Danny Ainge.
Yeah, when you're in that contender status, you don't care about first round picks.
Yeah, exactly. But we alluded to him earlier. Let's talk about Aaron Gordon and his fantastic start to life in a Nuggets uniform. Josh, what's impressed you most about Aaron Gordon? Because coming out of Orlando, another player whose reputation was shot a little bit. Didn't want to be with the team, hadn't kind of made the progression that we were expecting from someone of his talent. But he's coming into Denver and is slotted into that role perfectly. Doesn't have too much of an ego, is taking his open shots and making them.
Yeah. He's just a case of it does bring into question how many players are stranded on these in these bad franchises that could contend and could contribute to winning basketball, but are stuck on these teams with that don't really have a direction and don't really know what they want out of this player. And right now, as soon as he's arrived, he's been given a defined role, which is basically just to kind of replace what they lost in Jeremy Grant. And he's fit seamlessly, with the same, with the same, he's averaged the same amount of points as he did with Orlando, with much better efficiency, in his 4 games. He's shooting upwards of 60% from the field, and he's just feeling, more so than his stats. You can just see how quickly he's and seamlessly he's fitting with this team. He's cutting a lot, and he just seems like that perfect player that is complemented by a big like Nikola Jokic, who will find you. His athleticism is just playing off. He's not shooting as well as you'd want him to yet, but the confidence is there. He definitely seems a lot refreshed, to be on a winning team. And you're just seeing that from a lot of these players, especially the players that left, Orlando, even like Vucevic with the Bulls. They just got their first win, but regardless of the fact that they lost the first few games, yeah, he is. You can see just the look in these players' eyes when they get to go somewhere where they think that they're actually playing for something.
Yeah,
and with the way the Nuggets were trending even before making this move, you could start to see, with Murray coming back to form, you could start to see that they are becoming more of a threat in the West, especially with how the Lakers are looking right now. So he definitely looks, invigorated and ready to contribute. And you're seeing that also with Michael Porter Jr., who,
He's on
he
fire.
just had, last 6 games shooting 64% from three. All of these players just coming together, and you know, I think this is April 2nd. I'm not sure they've probably played since then, but they were 3-0 since acquiring Aaron Gordon,
Yeah, they're
and
4-0 now. Yeah.
yeah, they're 4-0. But they were the lineup of Murray, Barton, Gordon, Porter, and Jokic had played 64 minutes together and outscored their opponents by 48 points.
Wow.
With the best offensive and defensive rating in that span.
Wow.
So the fit is, it can't be over exaggerated. It can't be overstated. And it's rare you see a fit, just go this well in a mid-season acquisition, and it can be the thing. It's this natural chemistry there that can put them in a situation where you're seeing a lot of teams in the West and the league in general are struggling to find their chemistry with players in and out of the lineup. So if they can be the hottest team going into the playoffs, they can make similar magic to what they did last year.
Yeah. How far do you think that acquisition of Aaron Gordon pushes this ceiling of this Denver Nuggets team? Like, where can they go from here? Because as you said, getting momentum going into the playoffs can only be a good thing for them. And with the Lakers falling off, who knows what noise they can make in the playoffs? Where do you see their ceiling?
I think this improves their prospects dramatically, because losing Jeremy Grant and how Murray was playing to start the season, it kind of looked like maybe they were in for a season reverse from last year.
Yeah.
And that they weren't going to be able to replicate that, but now they are really, like, especially with how Jokic just continues to improve, and with Porter being featured a lot more. Last season Porter was kind of just thrown out there, with Bobo as, let's just see what we have here, but wasn't really a deep, an important part of the rotation. But now with all these players hitting on all cylinders, they are a legitimate threat because they have decent depth as well. And I think they can be a team that, challenges the Lakers, that goes into the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, I completely agree. And now with Aaron Gordon, they've got that more versatile defender who can pick up an assignment like LeBron James or pick up an assignment like a Kawhi Leonard.
I'm not sure a team wants to see this team in the first round. I could easily see them beating the Jazz or the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah. I hope we do get another Jazz Denver matchup, because that was one of the best series in recent memory last year. So that'd be great to get that again. But yeah, the Denver Nuggets they're serious. You can tell they're serious. And when you've got a player of Jokic's caliber and you're building around him and you're building kind of a perfect lineup for him, and you've got a lot of versatile scorers and a lot of versatile defenders, you're setting yourself up for a lot of success. And credit to Denver for doing that, and not even having to give up too much to do it either. Jamal Murray obviously through the draft, Aaron Gordon through this trade. So yeah, they've done a fantastic job.
That front office deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah,
they made that decision early, when they had Jokic and Nurkic, and they quickly decided, Jokic is our guy, and they quickly took advantage of his talent and surrounded him with players that fit it. A lot of franchises don't do that, and we see that a lot. And now Jokic is, he's a player that probably will likely reach his potential, and we'll see what a player of Jokic's caliber can, how far they can go, because they are giving him the players he needs to prove himself.
For sure, yeah. The Nuggets are a scary proposition right now. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Full Quarter Talk podcast. We're moving swiftly into the playoffs. Well, not swiftly, but we're moving closer. Still about 6 weeks to go, but they're on the horizon. A lot of questions still to be answered. I'm looking at the Lakers. I'm looking, at that race for the number 1 seed in the East is looking real juicy. So we'll be there to cover it every step of the way, give our thoughts, our feelings. As I said, thank you for listening, and we're out. Peace.